Welcome to the Digital Runway. I'm your host, Janey Park, the founder of the Digital Runway, a media brand that brings together beauty, fashion, tech, and AI to help you build, launch, and scale in today's fast evolving world. And at the Digital Runway, we explore innovations, stories, and strategies shaping the future. And through my background of working with brands like LVMH, Elizabeth Arden, Lippincott, I'm here to guide you on how to future proof yourself and your career. And today is very special. It's post-CES, also post-CES flu, and we're diving in behind the scenes of CES, the world's largest tech stage, with the incredible Robin Raskin. And Robin is not only a CES insider, but also a trailblazer when it comes to tech, also shaping the event's legacy, but also how we think about tech, wearable tech, virtual events, and consumer innovation. So without further ado, Robin, welcome to the Digital Runway.
Well, thank you. Happy post CES to you as well.
Thank you. And I mean, I know a lot of people have been sick. I know it was a lot of people that we met, over 140,000 at CES, which that number is just absolutely incredible just to even think about. Robin is the founder also of the virtual events group. Want to future proof your brand in beauty, fashion, tech, AI, and business? You are in the right place. Welcome to the Digital Runway. Whether someone is working in the industry or just obsessed with beauty and fashion, every week I write a newsletter, 3 pieces of news under Runway Radar and the Runway Diaries, which is behind the scenes. The newest edition is Janey's AI edit with ChatGPT prompt. I give all this information away completely for free. Check out the Digital Runway email newsletter in the caption. I'm going to just hop into a segment really quick, and I put this together. It's called Digital Decoded. And the whole purpose of this segment is really to simplify tech buzzwords and concepts so everyone can understand and use them. We're going to start with 3 tech terms today. The first one is wearable tech, devices that are worn on the body, like either smart rings, glasses, and watches that enhance everyday functionality and connect to digital ecosystems. Any other thoughts in terms of what wearable tech is?
Well, I think the great thing that you saw at CES was it finally went from off of your wrist and out into every other. I called it the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You could put it in your ears. You could put it on your nose. You could put it in your mouth. You can technology enhances everything from yoga pants as the fashion, the digital fashion. I mean, why shouldn't your clothes change color at night when you have to go out? Why shouldn't they turn into water repellent as necessary or keep you warmer or colder? Tech is going to be responsible for all of those innovations too, some of which are happening and some aren't.
I love what you said about the water repellent or lighting up, all amazing things that I think I'm sure you've been thinking about for a very long time since you've been in tech. And we're seeing, a little bit of that more come to life as
Yeah.
time goes on, wearable fashion tech.
We used to do a fashion tech show, and literally every dress in the show had 3 engineers to make it work. And like, you don't need that anymore. Your battery on your watch or your glasses or your ring kind of lasts for a lot of days now with that. The more invisible that stuff all gets, better it
Mhm.
is.
We actually just had a conversation about this behind the scenes. Shout out to Claire of Digital Fashion Week, which is going to be happening in 2 weeks in New York. Hope to see everyone there. Rob and I were just talking about it. The second term, which kind of ties into what we just talked about, but emerging technology. And I just kept the definition very simple: cutting edge innovations from AI, VR, AR, MR, XR that are paving the way to future industries. Of course, we can go down multiple rabbit holes, but Robin, you've spent a very long career in tech. Any other thoughts on defining emerging technology?
Well, I think this year at the show, you saw quantum come up in the conversation a lot, and you will in the future. So I picked quantum there. The other areas you saw that were kind of new to CES was food tech, ad
Mhm.
tech. So whole new areas where tech is flying taxis, cars. So yes, emerging tech is sort of what's on the cusp next. But be forewarned, a lot of those products that you see on a show floor, like a show like CES, don't always make it the full round for all sorts of reasons.
Mhm.
So it really takes tremendous amount of not just innovation, but skill to get a product out the door. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was making a TikTok right before this, and I was like, I never, even though I went to a very techie school, Carnegie Mellon, I ended up doing programming, deciding it wasn't for me. Never thought I would end up at CES, and we'll have to tell this story later about how we got connected. But emerging technology is really just infiltrating every aspect of our lives to make it better, worse. That is your, humble opinion about how you decide you want to view it. But on that note, I want to get to the last definition in Digital Decoded, which is CES, Consumer Electronics Show. Obviously, Robin, you've had a very big hand in this. But my very simple definition is the world's largest tech event. It had over 141,000 people go to Vegas. The purpose of the show is to showcase the latest technologies that will define tomorrow's world, whether or not it's with the media, the trade organizations, clients, suppliers, and just tech enthusiasts who want to be in the know as to what's going on. Any thoughts on CES and what it means?
No, just what a great job they do. So first of all, it started in 1967 as a television show, like that made TVs, yeah, that showcased basically TVs, and then moved on to CD-ROMs. And Gary Shapiro, and shout out to Gary Shapiro and Kinsey Fabrizio, who shepherded this thing for many years and have turned it into the center of innovation. And so it really is each year very deliberately going next into new audiences, like I said, space tech, food tech, ag tech, the cars, driving cars. So a lot of credit to CES for being ahead of the trends and sticking with it and improving the show every year. I've never seen people care so much about the show.
That's incredible, and we're gonna dig into the story of CES and your involvement with it. But we're gonna take a step back. Robin, you've had an incredible career from technology, media, events, and I wanna put the highlight on you today and talk about how, first of all, you got into tech in the first place. So we're gonna take it all the way back to whatever time period and your first encounter with tech and why you decided to get into it.
Such a silly story, but worth telling, especially to women. So it's got to be 1980. I have a new baby, and my husband is a computer graphics guy, and his president at the university was teaching, gave us a Unix terminal. And my husband said, "You ought to learn how to write using this, not your typewriter." All I wanted to be was a writer. So I wrote a story called How I Learned About Computers to Save Our Marriage. And it basically said, the guy comes home with this terminal and he's teaching me Unix, and I don't really get it, but I can see that women have a future here because if you got to be at home with a baby, you got a terminal, you can type, you can make revision. This is going somewhere. So I start publish this thing. I get $25 for it. And I get a call afterwards from Bill Ziff, who was starting a magazine in New York
Mhm.
called PC Magazine. Did I want to come work? And I got a call from Bill Gates. Did I really think there would be a computer on every desktop? And so perfect timing. And so I always say, if you ever want to, make a splash, just write it down and get it out there. And I never had to look back. I didn't know anything, but as Bill Ziff said to me at the time, nobody knows anything about computers. Just get in here and learn with us. And so I did. So I stayed a magazine editor for a long time. PC Magazine, launched Family PC because I felt kids were with computers and they didn't know what was going on. And this was all before there was even an internet. There was AOL and CompuServe. That was it. And then once there was an internet, many print magazines died, and I felt that I would find another vehicle, and they're all media, all vehicles. Events like CES, it's a media vehicle. I mean, so I switched to events and worked with CES for the better part of 15 years, where they finally bought most of the things I built for them. They acquired it, and now I consult for tons of different events. Same
Mhm.
principle. Tell a good story, find new audiences, and believe it, I know I don't look young, but embrace young people because they need to be included. So it's gotta be a very intergenerational thing.
I mean, I'm just thinking like there's so much to unpack there, but I want to say like first of all, like what you just said about like writing it down and getting it out there. it's the same principle, but now we have social media
Yeah.
hosting content, right? Just post the content. You just never know who's going to see and what's going to happen. I think that that's really incredible that that was also part of your journey. I want to get into how did you come up with the idea for your virtual events company? And what were sort of the early challenges that you had as you were building it? You're a female
Yeah.
founder in tech, which is obviously as well notorious for, how the disparity in terms of numbers of, women versus men.
Yeah. Virtual events group, I'm still challenged. So I've sold my CES, acquired my company. I leave CES in 2020. I worked that year. I come home and we're hit with this pandemic, right? Within like 2 months of being home. And I was introduced to Zoom and as my way of life for the next 2 years and realized how amazing this would be. Like all of a sudden had this vision that whether it's in the workplace, whether it's at meetings, you have a choice, even when we get
Mm,
out of the pandemic, of how you want to meet. The fact that we're talking right now. So I decided to double down on the virtual part of events and form a community that needed to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't. They're really quite different skills. And now you see hybrid events. So we work with all sorts of events. We do pure digital events, we do hybrid events, we do live events and they have different tools, but they are the ones that were shared that they're tech forward and digital first, that they really push the technology.
What would you say is a recipe for an amazing event? I mean, obviously, there are things that you can plan, things that happen on site that could literally put a wrench in the whole thing. But, what's your formula and your recipe to creating, hosting, and executing an excellent event?
It depends a lot on the kind of event, but and really, the audience is changing. And I'm not kidding. We used to think nothing of letting people sit down for an hour and listening to a keynote. Well, that ain't happening anymore unless you're gonna have fireworks like Delta did at Sphere
Yeah.
in Vegas. So you have to it's now about a lot about entertainment and it's a
Mhm.
lot about brevity. You have a generation that is more interested, and probably not wrongly so, in the relationships that they will build at a show
Mhm.
as much as learning the content. So, how can you give them content quickly and in an exciting way, but give them breathing room to meet each other, explore, and discuss? Because that will be the memory they'll take away. And it varies from show to show. And, it always something that feels a little magical, that takes them by surprise, and, but not feel gimmicky. You've seen that now that you've been to CES. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the scale is absolutely incredible. I've moderated a lot of different conferences and also spoke on a lot of different stages, both in the US and also internationally. But the scale of CES is like a whole other beast and for a longer period of time. Obviously, there's, media days as well as, the time for the exhibition
Yeah.
with the booth and also, we have the creator stage, which I want to get into that as well a little bit later. But there's a lot of things that are very different, I'm sure, from when you started, and one thing that I wanna pull out from what you said is, making an event or a conversation that makes sense, especially this generation, because it's really about social media, whereas, like, everyone's used to, like, a quick dopamine hit. They want, like, flashes of transitions, they want the fireworks, they want, something that's immersive and digital, otherwise, they will be on their phone or some other connected device because
Yeah.
everyone is literally connected to a ton of different devices, and of course, you have wearable tech on top of that.
They're really hungry for human connection too. And if you
Yeah.
walked around the show floor, you saw that even in the booth, stressing sustainability, stressing humanity, stressing
Mhm.
social connections. I think you really and I do think this came out of the pandemic too, when you were locked up for 2,
Yeah.
years, you walked out with a real hunger and need for people. So I think a show person has to understand that. It's all in the timing. And there's a time for everything. There's a time to break into small groups. There's a time to come together into a big wow moment. There are gimmicks that work. As I said to you, we used to do a digital fashion show at CES. We did something called The Last Gadget Standing, which is sort of like Survivor met Shark Tank when Shark Tank didn't exist yet. So you're always thinking of what is a fun way to get this information across.
Yeah, and I think that is really important. Like, what's the key messaging? Who's the target? And how do you connect with them further? Because as much as we're in a highly connected digital world, we still want human contact and also relationship and conversation, whether or not it's digitally or physically in real life at an event like CES. I want to get into actually a little bit because you've talked about it a few times and we also spoke about it before this podcast, which is the fashion side of you had mentioned before that you had done a fashion show. Can you walk us through kind of that journey of what was the integration with fashion and beauty as
Yeah.
well with CES?
My job for CES was to think about new markets, both of people that would exhibit, of attendees that would come to the show, and of things that would resonate with people. So we started beauty tech, oh God, I'm going to say like 2018. And there were a handful of companies, but Perfect Core being one. You could analyze your face and then try on makeup. And at the time, it was a lot more primitive than it is now. But there were anchor people that have grown over the years to L'Oreal. Did you ever L'Oreal keynoted CES, I think the year before last. So like the fact that a makeup company and the fact that they're touting their technology, I think at that year it was lipstick for handicapped people to be able to put on their lips with a robotic type device. There
Mhm.
are face compounds that you can mix up, the personalization of you. So as the technology gets better, there's smart mirrors that can now look microscopically at your pores. We're almost tipping point to health, like where beauty and health align. So CES did have a big beauty track this year that was quite well received. A lot of LED facial masks, but this idea of AI behind beauty personalizes it. And actually, I'll put in one of my big like things that I hated about the early AIs and beauty was that they didn't have enough people of color or people of
Mhm.
different races, and you always got a white young woman who looked exactly because that's what they were fed on to be trained. Now you see more, you can more easily look at an Asian skin or a black skin or, different variations of skin
Mhm.
and give good advice. So we've come AI has come really far, but imagine the scenario. Take a photo of your face. It's looking down to the capillary level at what product might be good for you. It goes through a back end of here's the right concoction just for you. And then you use it for 3 weeks and then you go back and say, is my face better? So it's sort of like full circle, great for customer loyalty. And we're getting that's the dream. No more product returns, no more try-ons and makeup stores. We're really close.
Definitely. I mean, I think Perfect Core, I love that experience, and you had it in the creator, area with the stage, and it literally links together everything that I think that we've been needing. It's problem-solving technology, also, in a sense, could be, at-home beauty, what you mentioned. There was a lot of LED masks, and I love LED masks. Robin, I don't know if you use LED masks at all?
Have a wand. I
The
took
one.
some pictures, but it's not possible cross in Bologna. Part of the problem is I never use it as much as I should, as most of
Yeah.
the but think about your pain points in life. Like, you go to this you gotta try on those black pants because they have to fit well, and that's where online doesn't always work well, but, like, imagine you gotta go take off your clothes, go in a dressing room. Imagine when they can scan your body and make those alterations. We're getting closer all the time. The new materials, and it borders on chemistry as well. The new fabrics that will be more sustainable, that will be made from plant leaves and grape seeds and olives and last longer and be stain resistant are great alternatives to rapid fashion.
Fast fashion, yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think whether or not the sustainability angle or even creative uses of the product, we were talking about wearable tech earlier. I write in my newsletter and I dropped a report at the end of last year, and I call it a digital runway report. So I recap 2024. And part of my 2025 trends was that it wouldn't be wearable tech anymore. It will be wearable fashion tech because a lot of times, and I feel like you could speak a lot on this, Robin, but the wearable tech, I mean, there was a necklace that I talk about called the friend necklace. It was like an AI friend, $99. And I was looking at it one day and I had written about it and I was like, you know what? It looks like something. I can't put my finger on it, but it looks like something. And I realized it looked exactly like an Apple AirTag. And I think that this is a big
Yeah.
issue. I think that if you're trying to target, especially with, women or those who are in the more fashion and the aesthetic side, like we need wearable tech that is fashionable that we actually want to wear and it looks aesthetic, like real jewelry versus an Apple AirTag. So, I mean, do you
Yeah.
see the transition of wearable tech to wearable fashion tech?
Totally. I do, and I think there are a lot of designers working on that now. The hard part is to get all the mechanics in there and get your updates, from the cloud. I mean, there's a lot, as if jewelry weren't hard enough. But I think the other thing that you're seeing is ways to shop. We're talking about real world. There are companies selling digital fashions for digital
Mhm.
avatars for when you go into Roblox or Unreal Engine and you want to play with Ralph. All of the major fashion houses are now have outposts of some sort in an immersive world. And
Mhm.
someday, like I might not come to your meeting like me. I might just send my avatar. Next week, we're doing a show where actually our keynote is Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn. He was co-founder of LinkedIn. It's his avatar that's giving the talk, and the guys that created the model behind his avatar, and it's indistinguishable from him. So
I love that.
yeah, we're moving quickly.
We're definitely moving quickly. I wasn't gonna talk about this, but you made me think about it because you mentioned AI avatars or just avatars in general, but there's an avatar aspect and there's, like, literally the rise of AI agents, AI influencers, where you could literally create. I was telling my mom the other day, and my mom is in her 70s, and I explained to her, now I'm, exploring different video editing tools where I
Like
could
it.
literally just film, like, 5 minutes of myself, upload it, and literally I can give it a script and it will literally spit out a video in my
Yeah,
likeness.
like
And
or something like yeah. No, you can and you will, and but to do it well is going to take human smartness and human assistance, and to do it it kind of liken it like desktop publishing when it first happened. Everybody had all these tools, and what they got out of it was a ransom note. That's what, look, I have a font, I'm going to use it. I have this font, I'm going to sans serif, I'm going to Helvetica it, I'm just going to make a mess. And AI can be a lot like that right now, that you can make
yeah.
a real mess if there isn't a human, intelligent person making some good decisions on your final edits, your final colors, your
Mhm.
final look and feel, and your brand. Only you can do that. And that still takes creativity. But we digress.
We totally digress. Yeah, let's get back to CS. So I want to talk about scaling your business because obviously you started it, you were building it, you were working with CES, and ultimately it became something that CES wanted to acquire. Can you walk us a little bit through that journey and what it looked like? Because that is no
Well,
small feat. I don't think people understand this.
but I think sometimes, I think especially for women more than men, it's pure accident. It was not a plotted journey. I love building things that would bring new audiences to CES, and I loved working with CES. And so every year I would just say, well, last year we did kids and parents. Why don't we try sports and fitness this year? Or why
Mhm.
don't we do digital money? And so each year, sometimes they would work, sometimes they didn't. But when you put them all together, I had built 15 things that each had a following, that
Mhm.
each worked towards the goal. And then it was time to kind of let that baby go. And hard. I've had magazines close. I mean, one of the hardest things I think women in business are going to have is you're going to have to know when to say goodbye to something. I did this magazine that was a joint venture between Disney and Ziff Davis called Family PC. I love this
Mhm.
thing as much as I love my kids. And when they decided to close it, which was a financial decision, I just said, "You kill it. This is like killing my firstborn." And it was, but moved on. So somewhat serendipity, somewhat some of these things are orchestrated for you. I've watched in our own booths, people decide, "Oh, I'm in this booth, you're in the next booth. Our skills are complementary. Let's merge." So things things happen, and I feel like people tend to be more cerebral about it than I am. I kind of go with my gut on these things,
Yeah.
and I have any fault, it's hanging on for things for too long.
Mhm.
Like even the virtual events group now needs some pivot. We're not in the pandemic anymore. And so let's move past it. And it's hard. You have to know when to.
Yeah, that's a great piece of business advice right there, which is knowing when to part ways, whether or not amicably, really, at the end of the day, and really just get on to the next
Yeah.
chapter.
Amicably is so key, and that's really important. I just want to say I am 70 years old and I'm still in this business because I pretty much work with everybody. There are a few people that will walk away saying I cannot do business with her.
Mhm.
So I think, those skills, those negotiating skills, those understanding of people skills is really going to serve you all well.
I feel like we could just do a whole TED talk on business advice from Robin, which might have to be another show, but I want to dig into a little bit about virtual events group. If you can share a little bit about, what is the virtual events group and what's your future vision? You mentioned about, needing a pivot because we're not in the pandemic anymore,
Mm.
but what is your goal, mission, vision when it comes to the virtual events group?
So it's really simple. We've got this amazing past, a portfolio that just would blow anybody away of the things that we've built. And we've got all these people out there that are looking to build for the future. And basically, we consult for them now. And that may be setting down guidelines at a large organization about how they should use AI and attribute it. It may be helping out with a show by creating a new area. It may be coming in and just doing a fun engagement with an audience. And right now, what we think about a lot is the emerging creator economy, and where so we just built the creator space for
Mhm.
CES this year. We're building the creator lab at the NAB show. We're doing the Silicon Valley Video Summit, which is a little more on the AV pro end, but also has a creator streak. So we see a new economy coming where I think one of the byproducts of the pandemic was people don't want life and job needs a better balance, that a content creator can be anyone, anywhere, that there's this democratization going on that I think our last election showed very clearly where who was influencing the votes, and it wasn't the New York Times and the Washington Post, fortunately or unfortunately. So, and the Washington Post has a great TikToker, by the way. We had them on our panel in the creator space. So I don't want to knock old media or new media, but I think there's something being built here. And
Yeah.
that's what we're really excited about. And the democratizing tool was your phone, and it lets you shoot movies and tell stories and edit. And it's terrifying and exciting at the same time. But I think it's going to give so many people new jobs that they never dreamed of. A lot of parents ask me to say, I have my kids, I don't even know what to train them to want to be when they grow up, right? We just train them to be thinkers and learners. They'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's key. Thinkers and learners and creative problem solvers. And I love what you just shared about that. I wrote about actually the DNC for the first time. I don't really cover politics. I know I'm based outside of Washington, DC, but it's just not something that I like to get into. Having lived in Hong Kong and also China, and I'm Korean American, like lived in different countries, there's a lot of different political viewpoints. And it's just easier sometimes not to delve into it, but I covered it from a perspective of, emerging trends and technology, the way that they partnered with all those content creators. And I'm not even talking just like the political ones. You had some of my favorite fashion creators who were invited to the Democratic National Convention to cover it. And I think the way that social media creators, also independent media, is being
Mhm.
utilized, like there's still a need for traditional media of, a renowned news outlet, but people are covering news in different ways. And I think it kind of goes to creating a personal brand and sharing your story. And if you had a perspective, being able to, capitalize on that and forge a new career. And, case in point is like us having this conversation and, myself building a podcast and independent media, which I feel like is very full circle because I wanted to be like Connie Chung when I was in high school, but I wasn't allowed to be a journalist because it was not an appropriate career for my, Korean
With
immigrant
our
father
family. Yeah.
to.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating, and I am very torn. I came from the world of fact checkers and copy editors. I love those people. I felt better every day of my life because they were in my life, and when I see somebody at the DNC, let's use your example, just going, "Hi, I'm here," and that's their post, like, it makes my hair stand on end, but that's like but I think my job there is to bring these people together and
Yeah.
say, "Let's have a conversation because I can learn something from you." And I do. I think to these young creators, I go, "Oh my god, why do you overshare so much?" And then they tell me, and their reasons are very different, but I'm fascinated. So I think we're at a cultural sort of point where we're going to find different audiences are going to resonate with different things. And then what's missing is, you know, when I was a kid, we all sat down on Sunday night and we watched the Ed Sullivan Show as a family. And you don't have those moments of the whole world coming together as much anymore. But when you do, even the Oscars, I'm thinking of the next worlds come together moment, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I wanna get into, I think what you mentioned about the creators and the motivation for sharing so much, like, the creator economy is a huge business now and will continue to be it. And, CES, and you launched the first creator stage and space at CES. Can you speak to kind of how that came about and what your thoughts are after, hosting the first, reader space at CES, which is great. And shout out to Shira Lazar. She did a fantastic job as the MC and a, great voice within the space.
Yeah, and CES, you shout out to them for backing this idea, but it's pretty simple. So if you've gone to CES or any other trade show, you see everybody there with a camera, everybody there posting, everybody there commenting, and yet traditionally you had a press room and it was way in the back and nobody could go in it. So what happens if you just give creators a place where they can do a couple of things? One is amplify the great stuff that's at CES.
Mhm.
Charge silly things like charge their batteries, have some editing equipment, have some work surfaces, and oh, by the way, at the same time, have a stage where we can discuss things of importance to creators, like how do you make money? What should your contract look like? How do you negotiate a fair contract? What metrics do you look at to know whether you're being successful? How do you grow your audience? Should I be on one platform or 20? So we had a mixture of content over the 3 days, and like shout out for so many great creators that Adam Westcott and Shira. We had Will I Am on our stage. We had Denham from Yellowstone, whose last name I'm forgetting. Just people who were sharing, people from Walmart, the digital, how they are working with creators, and people from Lowe's. I mean, it was really just an incredible mixture of brands working with creators. Roblox, how they work with creators. They brought a 17-year-old who built Dress to Impress, which was their best-selling game, and it was mind-blowing. So the idea was to capture the energy of that creator at CES, both with stage knowledge and with practical stuff that they needed.
Yeah, the programming was absolutely phenomenal. I literally wish that I could clone myself because you can't go to every single area of CES, but I'll definitely be looking and watching the playback for a lot of these great
Yeah, playback's
conversations.
all up there now, so That's the nice part of, things that you don't have to have that FOMO. And,
Yeah.
and they're like I'll be at South by Southwest in a few pretty soon, March. Same thing. You will never feel like you saw everything. And now you don't really have to because it's all captured for you.
Curious to know actually, and this wasn't a planned question, and I usually prep and I send my questions, and I think this is one that you can answer very quickly, but I definitely have thoughts of how I want to approach CES next year and how I'm gonna prep for it and also on the ground. And post CES, a lot of vitamins for sure and washing my hands, which I already did. What are your top tips to navigating CES? Or, you even mentioned South by
Yeah.
Southwest, like large conferences. I'm sure the nuances are very different, but what are your top tips?
Number one on the list, study your transportation and don't plan. I used to deploy like 100 people from PC Magazine out to CES every year when I was still in magazines, and I had to figure out systematically. So not everyone had to see every part of the show. So if your passion was cars, that is where you were going to go. If your passion was health, and so I really divvied it up, but I had like these life hacks, like make your first meeting a breakfast meeting and tell them you need a ride over to the hall afterward. Transportation's like a really big deal. Like now I tell people, remember that Tesla loop. It'll be your friend. That's how you should get around the show. And it's hopefully save people but I think follow your passions, one. And two, well, the big booths are so like luxuriously fascinating. Go to the perimeters, to the guys who have spent their last dime to get to the show and have tomorrow's winner in their pocket. And in
Mhm.
particular, shout out to CES's Eureka Park, where to qualify, you have to be a startup. And you just find brilliant ideas there. And you sort of see the future in one little place without all of the adornments that you get in the bigger booth.
Every single area, there's a story or there's a curation, and you really can't attack it all. You literally just have to take a piece of the pie. Even for myself, I want to focus on the beauty, the fashion, the retail, wearable tech,
Mm.
some AI. I didn't even have a chance to see everything. It just wasn't physically possible. So you read about it, and that's also okay. You just can't FOMO in these,
What's
situations.
good is you get a sense of the big trends. Same thing. I only had one day at the show after I was working, and I was there with my husband. I said, "You do the cars. I got to do the AV, camera, TV. I wanted to see an AI powered TV." So I had a very specific list. And then I think when you get up to a booth, you have a question like, or better yet, over overhear somebody else's conversation that really has there's always like somebody smarter than you going to the guy, "Well, are you sure it does this resolution about this thing?" And you're just saying that, taking it all in and sort of being a fly on the wall. Love that style of reporting. And then talking to people. What was the
Yeah.
best thing you saw? And that's what we'll do this afternoon in my session.
Yeah.
What did you see that maybe we didn't see?
Yeah, and I wanna save most of our CS conversation for there, but I just wanna ask you 2 things. So one is, what was your favorite thing that you saw, and what do you think was the most overhyped thing from CES?
Well, it's so hard because AI was clearly the talk of the show, and it's very hard to see AI in action, not, when you're not the user. I think the cars were phenomenal. I mean, they're just, yes, some are driverless, some let you shop in them, some have entertainment. It's kind of terrifying, but I do think they are amazing. And some of the things, when you ask like 10 people, what was the best thing you saw at the show? And they all said, the electric spoon. I'm like, really? A
Mhm.
spoon? And it was a spoon that actually simulates a salt for low salt diets. But there's always like one product. The year before it was the toilet that analyzed your pee. It like sensors in it. So, there's always one year we had to have the bird feeder that took pictures of your birds and
I'm
sent them
with
to you on your phone. Best product we ever bought at CES. Love this thing. So it's always there's like so much serendipity there and these little ideas. But then you get the big idea. What is an AI television? I just want to know. And so went up to, the Samsungs and the LG. What is AI about television? And I got to see it. So I think, yeah, there was a lot to see. And I only got sort of one day to see it. I was involved much more in the conversational part, changing the way we do everything. Like in our retail sessions, we talked about the store experience and how AI was going to change everything about how you shop, how ads are served to you, where things get sourced from, and how does the supply chain work in an AI world. I don't know if that's any in fashion. That's really a big thing. And some of the new AI powered sourcing, supply and logistics, things I couldn't do them. I would have had to hire an expert. I can now be my own sourcing person on a
Mhm.
site, Alibaba. So you're starting to see, again, more democratization of tools.
The democratization is a very big one, and I think you kind of also covered, like, what you will see as kind of the trends that you'll predict for the next decade, but is there one thing in your mind that you see either for CES or just tech in general as the big idea, the big theme?
Yeah, I'm going to say for this year, undoubtedly, it's AI transforming every product, every workflow, every how we're taught in school. I mean, sort of, you just name it, how our health works, really big decisions. And so it's so important that we are all thoughtful and responsible.
Want to future-proof your brand in beauty, fashion, tech, AI, and business? You are in the right place. Welcome to the Digital Runway. Whether someone is working in the industry or just obsessed with beauty and fashion, every week I write a newsletter, 3 pieces of news under Runway Radar and the Runway Diaries, which is behind the scenes. The newest edition is Janey's AI edit with ChatGPT prompt. I give all this information away completely for free. Check out the Digital Runway email newsletter in the caption. We have about 10 minutes left. I want to get into just a rapid fire segment. I call it I had to actually make it shorter because before it was 21 closet confessions. Now it's 11. But we're just going to switch gears. And Robin, we're just going to go for a lightning round of quick questions. So, first question, coffee or matcha?
I'm a coffee person. I have tried mightily not to be coffee.
Best career advice you've ever received?
Swagger. Like just walk into a room like you own it.
I like that. That's so for the times too. Top 3 sources for industry news.
Okay, so I bucketize. Industry news, I do like the Verse and Mashable because they give you a context. I like the information. I like Wired. I like things that put things in a context, not just report on the news. But I really like The Atlantic and The New Yorker are the 2 magazines I get every month in my hand. It gives me a broader perspective on how tech fits.
Okay. Most influential book you've read.
Okay, so I am a Robert Caro freak. Robert Caro wrote The Power Broker, which is the story of Robert Moses's New York, a non-elected official who really became the czar of how roads were built in New York. And I love Walter Isaacson's bios, whoever they're about. Steve Jobs in particular was a
Yeah,
really
I read
good.
that one too. I'm definitely have to read The Power Broker because I never heard about it until you. Favorite wearable tech?
It's so funny. I have cut back. I actually, at this moment, don't have a favorable but my step counting watch. And I'm still looking for the perfect product. If any of you have it, from my mother, because there's something flawed about every wearable. She's 95. It's got to be easy, not a hugely expensive service. But like even the Apple Watch cannot tell the difference from when I fall down to I sat down. False positives.
I'm gonna have to think about this if I have the product that I can recommend for your mother. Best advice for female founders.
Oh God, best advice for female. Oh, so I think I said it before. The first 60 seconds are always the hardest because I think we do have imposter syndrome things going on. But I think if you can walk into the room and capture them in 60 seconds, that's all the time you really have. Somebody's made their impression, you're good. So work really hard, like the rest of the speech, work hard on 60 seconds. nail it.
I love that. If not tech, what would you be doing?
So when I was little, all I wanted to be was a guide at like historic Virginia, like Williamsburg, Virginia, wearing a long dress, taking people on tours. So I really do love history. But I think I would have been in the television business. I would have loved to have been an anchor. I had kids. I had to make some decisions about what hours you would work.
One word to describe the future of tech.
Ever changing.
Excellent. What's your ultimate power outfit? Because I do talk about fashion, so I'm curious to know what's your go-to outfit.
Yeah, have to say it's one that I don't have to think about. It's the black pants, black jacket, and a colored shirt or colored jacket, some variation of that, so that I don't have to think about it. And but I'd rather be in workout clothes any time of day. Yeah,
Me too, I'm not gonna lie. With my Yankees hat and just a hoodie, I actually dress like a tech or crypto bro usually, but
yeah.
we have to present ourselves in a certain way. The most exciting CES moment that you've ever had?
So this is so funny. I run this conference for kids and families, and I said you have to bring surprise. So I invited the porn star Ron Jeremy, who I met because the adult show and CES used to be at the same time, and we got to talking about kids and safety. And it turns out he really believed that kids should be safe on the internet, that there should be brown wrappers on inappropriate websites. I said, "Do you want to come talk at my kids show, kids and family?" And he goes, "Yeah." So imagine I had like 100 people in a room. Announced Ron Jeremy on the schedule. Now I have like 700 people. The fire department came because we were violating codes. And he was really good. But it definitely was that unexpected moment. And then I think that is the wildest one. There have been the times people didn't agree with me and wanted to kill me in the middle of a show, stuff like that. But I think that Ron Jeremy speaking was the wildest.
I'm gonna have to go and dig that up on YouTube, or on the CS website somewhere I can find this because
Yeah.
it just sounds like a wild conversation on so many different levels. And last question, what's one thing people don't know about you?
Most people don't know that my first home, I'm from New York. I live in New York City, and my first home in New York was on a houseboat in the Hudson. And we lived there for 5 years. I think we paid some ridiculously ridiculous amount of rent a month to the dock master. And we bought this boat for like $10,000 and heated with coal. And we had two children with us on the boat. And so it was this mixture of the beginning of high tech living mixed with some really survival stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. When was this?
1980 to
Okay.
about somewhere in 85. Yeah.
That's a whole story. I think that we need to hear from you. Maybe it could be a LinkedIn post or a video from you. Before we wrap up, we do have one question from the audience, which is from Ala, and I'm going to pin it right here. And it's, what trends in beauty tech do you think will have the most impact on how brands engage with consumers in the next few years?
Okay. I'm going to go for two. One is it's harder. It's AI, and AI will be used in everything from developing your whatever it is, your face makeup, your eyeliner, to sourcing it. As I said, so AI is going to impact everything. How you box it. You can ask Stable Diffusion, draw me 17 different versions of a box, and cut the time to market for a beauty product in half. And the other thing is the creator market. The idea that you can have somebody who really believes in your brand represent it and you may not know, or it might be you. It might be, we call it employee generated content or user generated content. So a move away from celebrity endorsements to human endorsements.
Those are great points. I wanna talk about one thing because I literally have it on my desk because 'cause I've been trying it out, which is the Metacube, the HR Booster Pro, and while I was at CES, I actually visited the booth and I was able to secure one of these, which is actually Korea only edition, and I think I'll add to what you just said in terms of the trends, like at-home beauty tech. I think 1, it was with the pandemic, and second, it's just people would rather do things from the comfort of their own home versus booking something, and over the long term, it's actually a lot cheaper to, do these products and to purchase it in one shot first, upfront cost, and then to use it over time.
Let's just think about Sephora, something we all know. My prediction there is they are gonna have more high-tech equipment in the store, and then the store employees will have more time to work with you. So I walk in, I don't wanna hear about which foundation. I wanna go to a machine and tell it to me. They will have, like L'Oreal introduced, I guess, did you see it? It was the
Yeah,
biotherm, bioimprint, where and it's meant for salons and dermatologist office and eventually, I'm sure makeup stores, but so I think you're always gonna want, I don't know if you saw the robot massaging station, like, you're always gonna want to go somewhere for advice. So I think retail can use tech to make it better.
agreed. And tech that actually solves a problem and connects you to
Yeah,
products. So using digital solutions to be able to connect the physical with the product,
yeah.
the recommendation, it just scans your face, or you
Like,
plug in your
I
QR code or whatever it is for your very important beauty member or VIP at
mhm,
Sephora, which I am. I spend way too much money on beauty products because I want to be like Benjamin Button. That's my goal for this year, to try out all the beauty tech, but there's definitely a lot of solutions that beauty brands have not showcased yet that are coming in the pipeline or need to be working on.
yeah.
Otherwise, gonna be left in
I
the
want you to
technological dust.
You'll come back and tell us how often you use your DIY. I find that's the problem with me is I buy these things that I'm gonna use myself, and then there are only so many hours in a day.
I agree.
So so I wanna know how often. I have a very similar one that I
Yeah.
once a month, I remember.
I will say this because I bought this with my own money, and I did not crack it open. I bought it during Black Friday, but I've literally only been using it for over a week. But the thing is, it has an app. So the app actually has a push notification for you to check in, and
Yeah,
they gamify the experience, which I actually think is really genius because it gets you to check in so you can win product, but also it gives you a skincare regimen about how to use the different modes and on
yep,
what day. So I don't have to think about it because I don't wanna think about like, "Oh, do I use this mode this day or is that okay?" It literally gives you
yeah,
everything.
and, the
And
gel comes with a serum, right? That you put on
so you
first?
can buy a booster gel, like a conductive
Yeah,
gel, but I did a lot of research for probably like over a year before buying this because I'm just one of those people, because I'm very careful about what I put on my skin. And you don't have to use it. I started using like a collagen jelly cream as kind of a conductive gel, which I've also seen online and just kind of look through the
good
ingredients. So
good life hack.
dry pack, exactly. And I know we're coming up on time, but I do want to mention very quickly because I am connected to Robin because of John Katzman, who I met on an Amtrak. We just happened to have a conversation, and he was showing me photos from the Paris Olympics, and I was commenting that he took great photos for his daughter because not every dad can be a great photographer and videographer. I was wearing my Ray-Ban Meta glasses and had him try it, and he asked me what I did, and I took the opportunity to just share about what I did and what I was planning on doing, and he immediately reached out to Robin. So thank you, John, for that opportunity because otherwise I wouldn't have met Robin and wouldn't have had the opportunity to moderate an amazing panel at CES.
Yeah, no, he's probably ruined the date. Sorry, John, right, we'll keep to it. Right. No, he's a great friend and a great educator and person, so thanks for that shout out to him.
Robin, thank you. I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story and insights. It's been such an interesting conversation. I got to know you a little bit better as did the audience. And I just want to get into how can the community support and connect with you?
Yeah. So the site is virtualeventsgroup.org, and you can contact me through that or through any social media platform, Blue Sky included. Shout out to Blue Sky. And so, yes, I do believe in connections, although I think I might have hit the tipping point on that. But Janey, next time I'm interviewing you, thank you so much.
I appreciate that. We had a comment here from Joanna, amazingly insightful. Thank you for this. Robin is just like a wealth of knowledge and experience. And for everyone tuning in, the replay will be available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts on Sunday. Make sure to subscribe to the Digital Runway newsletter for exclusive news, insights into beauty, fashion tech, and AI, plus wearable tech. Also, make sure to connect with Robin Raskin in virtual events group to attend some of the amazing events that she is putting on. Let's continue building, innovating, and future proofing ourselves together right here on the digital runway.